At school, we were discussing perfectly and peacefully from the first month until after the month that things began to fall apart. An interval of 2 months after Mary had gone to school. I kept trying her lines, but she would pick up her calls optionally and gave an excuse that she was busy doing assignments and would call me back later, but then failed to do so. Most times, she would decline my calls completely and write a text, "Call me back later, please, I'm busy right now. I will get back to you when I'm done." She kept repeating these same words for 2 consecutive weeks. To be candid, the walls to my happiness were broken. Those words were very hurtful, and physically, I was living, but within me, I was dying silently. I couldn't sleep throughout the weeks when this was going on. As a school beginner, I thought maybe she was actually having challenges with her program in school, which was why she was trying hard to cope and could not have time for me any longer. Again, I thought maybe she was now thinking that I was no longer her type. Indeed, the thoughts were many. I cannot recall all of them back in memory. I was without peace, from one emotional disability to the other, and it was now too high for me to sit alone looking for solutions. When it was unbearable, I decided to visit her family. As conceived in my heart, early the following day, I visited Mr. Henry's family house. And learning about my arrival, he gave permission that I should be let in and given a seat in the sitting room. Meanwhile, Anastasia, his wife, who was at this time cooking in the kitchen, had noticed my presence and then came outside and joyously said, "Good morning, Christopher, my son." She greeted and smiled, exposing her dimples from both sides of her cheeks. "Good morning, Ma," I replied as I stood up from the chair and bowed. "Are you still around?" she asked. "You complete forget about us as our daughter, Mary, is no longer around." "It's not like that, Ma. I don't actually have time again due to the nature of my work at the moment. The grasses have taken dominion over my beans farm, and I'm weeding it," that's why I explained. "What about Sundays like today? Do you used to go to the farm even on Sundays?" "But you should at least," she was being interrupted by her husband, Mr. Henry. "Master Christopher, Christopher." Mr. Henry hailed. "Christopher, my able son-in-law-to-be, how are you doing?" he inquired. "I'm fine, sir." "Good morning," I replied. "Morning, my dear. Wow. I am super excited to see you in my abode once more. In fact, we just finished discussing you some couple of minutes ago. We were thinking maybe we have offended you," he said. "Oh. For where?" "Far from it, I can never forget about this family, even if I'm not going to marry Mary at the end of the tunnel," I said. "God forbid, that would never be your portion. Don't say that again. Our daughter belongs to no other person but you. In short, she is your own by merit," Mrs. Henry said jokingly, and we all laughed out loudly. Mr. Henry then moved to his seat and sat down. "I hope you are still in touch with my daughter," he inquired after sitting. "Yes, sir, we are still in touch," I answered. "Good one, because communication matters a lot in any relationship," he detailed out. I nodded in agreement when he made the statement, but on the contrary, I felt bad again as I recalled what my ordeal was. I did not say any other thing, however, sat quietly, and was deeply refreshing my thoughts, shaking my head in anguish. "Christopher, what is wrong? As I can see, you're no longer as you came. Is there any problem?" Mrs. Henry acknowledged. "Yes, I can observe that also." "What's wrong, son-in-law?" Mr. Henry also admitted. "Sir, it's about Mary," I started. "Mary? What about her?" he asked curiously. "Sir, you know earlier when she left for school, we were communicating regularly and peacefully. But for the past 2 weeks, she doesn't pick my calls again. I tried to figure out what could be the reason, but I couldn't. Hence, she doesn't have time again for us to talk. At times, when she managed to answer her calls, but she keeps saying that she was busy, and I should call her back later. What? Mr. Henry interrupted. You mean Mary has been doing this to you for a complete 2 weeks, and all you could do is keep it to yourself? No. No. I can't believe this. How come? But you people have any misunderstanding? Mrs. Henry asked also. I shook my head in disagreement. The commotion became tensed. I could sense anger visibly showing on their faces. They both stood and were writing around the room. On us, Mr. Henry called. Go and bring your phone and call your daughter, he said. Mrs. Anastasia Henry then rushed into their bedroom and shortly came out with her handset and dialed Mary's number, and she picked immediately. Yes, good morning. How are you doing? Mrs. Henry asked. I am good, Mommy. You called me early today, Mary said on the phone. Yes, because there's something I want to ask you, Mrs. Henry said. Okay, Mommy. I'm listening. When last did you talk to Christopher? Mrs. Henry asked again. Oh, 2 weeks ago. He normally calls me when I'm busy, Mommy. Did he come to the house? Yes, and he's still here with us. I'm going to give him the phone right now, and then you will talk to him, Mrs. Henry said. No. Mommy, I will call him back later today, Mary said and hung up the call. What? What is wrong with this girl? Mrs. Henry exclaimed. See. But if I begin to question this girl negatively, you will be the one siding her. Have you seen it right now? Christopher, my son, don't be offended. Next week Saturday will be her matriculation. Be patient, and we shall see how it will be on that day. Just make yourself available that day. The 3 of us we shall be going for the matriculation unfailingly, Mr. Henry said. At the university, many people lived on the school campus, including matriculation students, their parents, friends, and well-wishers. They all came to celebrate with their respective matriculation students, bringing gifts of all kinds, such as matrix cakes and photo frames. Beautiful queens and handsome kings were perfectly dressed in green matriculation gowns, and their joy was highly intensified. The students were happily moving up and down with their parents and loved ones, except for Mary, whose parents were unable to come at the moment. She waited anxiously for a long time, but they were not coming. Then she became worried. Even though students were greatly jubilating, she could not join due to disappointment. Mary was not only unhappy because of her parents' absence, but her very essential guest was also not yet there. She tried his phone numbers for long, but they were all switched off. She tried and tried countless times, but all to no avail. Then she became tired. She found a shade under one of the flowers planted in the school environment and sat meditating, and the spirit of eagerness took hold of her. Unknowingly to her, tears were already clouded and drooping out of her eyes. As she was in the process, Sharon, her best friend, who had also escaped the noisy gathering to create a fair atmosphere to answer her call, saw her, walked close to find out what could be the reason for her sitting alone on their happiest day. Bestie, what happened? Why are you crying, sitting here all alone? Is there any problem? Sharon asked, but Mary only gave her a stare. Talk, Mary. Would you stop what you're doing to yourself? You don't actually need all this today, and of course, you're no longer a baby for crying out loud. Oh. If it's because of Smith, I just finished speaking to him. He's the one that called me, and I escaped to come and pick his call, Sharon explained. Mary now turned and looked at her hopefully. Just relax, don't stress yourself, Sharon said again, using her handkerchief to clean Mary's teary face. But are you sure of what you are saying? Mary inquired. Of course, I'm saying the truth, Sharon answered. But then, how come all his 2 lines are switched off? I mean, I have been trying them for the past 3 hours now, but to no avail, Mary investigated curiously. Yeah, he called me with a new number. That's maybe his phone is faulty, Sharon guessed. Meanwhile, as they were speaking, Mary's phone began to ring. And she answered, "Hello, Mom." "Okay, which side are you staying?" "Okay, I will meet you there," she said and ended the call. "Sharon, let's go and meet my people, they are here already," Mary said. "Wow!" Sharon exclaimed. "I hope you are now happy, Mommy's pet." Sharon jested. At the described location, Mr. Henry and Mrs. Henry were modestly dressed in their traditional attires, looking presented, befitting what their daughter had been telling her fellow students about her family reputation and dignity. Having seen them from afar, Mary nodded in confirmation and gestured, pointing towards their direction for her friend Sharon to see. "Look at them there, I love my parents." "Wow. Best friend, your parents are looking stunning," Mary whispered into her ear. She called out, "Mom," and then started running towards her direction. As she reached, she hugged her with full strength as though her mother was going to fall, but she did not. After then, she turned to her father's side, who was standing, not looking happy, and embraced him also. Even though her father was annoyed with her, and she knew it, yet it didn't bother her. Sharon also arrived, they exchanged pleasantries, and then I came out of the hired vehicle, wearing my normal old clothes, and came and stood in their midst. Immediately, as Mary had observed my presence, her mood was suddenly changed, she became quiet. What do you think will happen to Mary, his village lover Henry and Mary's school lover and her parent? Watch out to unravel this in the next episode. Thanks a million times for watching. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to be notified when we post the next episode. See you in our next video.